So I'm 29 now. I'm gonna be 30 in the spring. And today at work, there was a younger kid there. She's about 19. She's gonna be 20 this month. She asked me, "Hey, you're old. What's like some advice that you'd give to somebody going into their 20s?" And I had to stop and think about it because it's like, at work, people don't normally ask questions that are like that deep or that pointed. So I had to think about it, and I was like, let me think about it and get back to you. And I thought about it, and it's what I came up with. It's like I lived my 20s wrong, like about as wrong as anybody could live them. Everything was about me, 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 what I want, and what I'm gonna do, and fuck everybody else, right? And, that eventually led me to have two daughters who I love, and to just treat their mother wrong, treat her family wrong, to kind of estrange myself and distance myself from my own family. And only now at 29 am I really like, thinking about it and like trying to try and correct and fix as much of that as I can, right? And, it's part of the reason that I stopped fighting for a little while too, and stopped, even training really, is because I just wasn't in the right headspace, right? Because even with like the message that I had and with what I was trying to do, it still was all centered around me. And, this last year and a half, I went through a real trial, right? I spent a lot of time getting to know myself and getting to just be someone that was not only like liked and likable by other people, but also somebody that is of actual use to the world and that cares about other people and lives graciously, or excuse me, that acts graciously and that lives, uh, with purpose, and that cares about other people and that isn't just out for himself. And I still struggle with it, daily, to just care about other people and to think about how the things that I might do could impact somebody else in ways that I might not even know about, right? Um, so I spent a lot of time thinking about it today, and I just wanted to make this video, and hopefully, you know, she can see it and get something from it. And if there's anybody else out there who's, 15, 17, 19, even 21, 22, that they can take the things that I came up with from that question that I got, and to, you know, maybe they're not even going down the same kind of path that I was, but, there's a lot of things in the world today that can lead people to do that, right? So, there's a few things I came up with, and one of them, probably the biggest one, is don't over drink, over smoke weed, get too into the party life, into, hookup culture, right? Because when I was, uh, 15, 16, 17, 18, I was drinking a lot, smoking a lot, doing pretty much anything I could get my hands on as far as, uh, pills or a little bit of coke and mushrooms and all types of stuff mixed in there, right? And the thing about like alcohol and weed and other drugs is that it just takes everything out of you as far as your energy and your motivation, and also just the physical health effects that can come from overusing things, right? So it's like with alcohol, I don't drink at all, nothing, never, no matter what, except, and I can't do it yet because I'm still not a baptized member of the church, but when I do become baptized in the Greek Orthodox faith, then I will drink the wine for communion, right? But just avoid over drinking, right? If you want to have a drink, once every couple weeks, just to go out with some friends and have some fun, and whatever, right? If you want to take a few hits at the end of the day of, some weed to like chill out and mellow out before you go to bed, or at the end of the week, you want to, just roll up a fatty and smoke one just, to take the edge off the week, then it's probably not a big deal, right? But it's like when the moment you wake up to the moment you go to sleep, you're burning. Like, what's the point, man? You're not useful to the world because you can't smoke a lot of weed or do a lot of edibles or dabs and all the crazy shit that they have now and really be of use to the world, right? So just like have a little bit of fun, whatever, go to some parties and whatever, but just chill with needing to be, drunk and high and get lit all the time. It's just not cool anymore. It's not cool to be a stoner anymore. It's not cool to be a party animal anymore, right? That was, the world is evolving past the point where uh, people, even a lot of young people that I know now, don't mess with any of that shit. And it makes me happy, right? Because when I was, 15 or 16, that's what you did to be cool, right? So just stay away from, all that shit, right? As best you can. Don't get too caught up in identifying too heavily with anything, right? When you're young, when you're in your late teens, your 20s, that's the time to be uncertain about things. And the problem is that a lot of people, they get too certain about things, right? So it's like someone who is like overweight all their teenage years and they turn 20, 21, and they, find veganism and they try it and they start losing a bunch of weight and they start having a bunch of energy and they start feeling better, right? In their brain, veganism's the way, that's what it is, that's what everybody should do, and I'm going to defend that till I die, right? But then what happens is that after, whatever, 4 months, 6 months, a year, 2 years, however long it takes, they start it tapers off, right? So it's like they start here and then they're, ooh, man, I got a lot of energy, I'm feeling great, and then it slowly tapers off where they don't have the energy anymore, they don't feel very good, they feel weak, they got all these different things that are going on, they're pale, they got cuts that won't heal, just anything that can happen as a side effect. And then the problem that comes in is they all of a sudden are in a weird situation where they told everybody that they know that this is the way and this is what works, and then they find out that, you know, subconsciously or consciously, that it's not working, and they can't go back on it because they told everybody that they know. And if they go back on it, then all of a sudden they feel like they're a liar to everybody that they know. Or a lot of the young people now who are 18, 19, 20 that are either super far to the right or super far to the left, they focus on, making sure that every single idea that they have falls to either one side or the other, right? And that's not healthy because it makes it impossible for you to have original thoughts just as a human being. And it makes it so that you're kind of stuck with what you've proclaimed to the world, right? So just when it comes to, your 20s, try to be uncertain about things, right? And try to just find your identity in having a purpose and to, not get so caught up in a warped idea of, what constitutes as good or bad or moral or immoral values, right? And to focus on, finding values that help you get through the day and get to sleep at night to where you're not, laying down to go to sleep and thinking about the ways you feel that you've wronged people, right? So build your identity and just trying to be a good person, but do it. What would be the best way to put this? Do it almost solo, right? I don't want to say like without anybody, right? But do it based on things that you read and that you study and that you contemplate and that you pray about and spend a lot of time, sort of inside yourself reflecting, right? Because you can get to a point where all of a sudden, every idea that you thought you had suddenly just isn't there anymore, right? It's like when I was, 19, 20, nobody could tell me shit. I had it all figured out. I knew everything. There was nothing anyone was going to teach me, and I was a fucking stubborn bastard, right? And it's like I'm starting to find that as time goes by, every answer that you think you have to something just turns into a question. And I truly believe that if you're a evolving person, if you're a growth oriented person, that excuse me, that every answer you have turns into a question with time, and that process continues until the end of your life. You get to the end of your life and you're left with nothing but questions, right? Because you realize that in the grand scheme of the universe and of all creation, that you don't really know that much, right? You could know a lot. You could be skilled in a lot of things, good at a lot of things, know a lot of knowledge, be really wise. And the wisest people will tell you that the thing that makes them wise is that they're humble to things that they don't know, and they're always, willing to learn. And that's the next thing, is to always, be um be addicted to learning, fall in love with learning, always be reading and studying and listening to books or reading books or whatever it takes to constantly be feeding your mind, right? Because when you are the type of person who just thinks they have everything figured out, you're going to get humbled, and you are going to find out real quick that, it's going to hit you. You're going to realize, oh shit, everything I've been doing is wrong and I don't know shit. That's what happened to me with, my ex and with my kids. Is I thought I had everything figured out. I thought I knew way more than I did just about life and about, dealing with people, dealing with, just how to be a grown up. And, it was wrong. I was wrong. And, I lost my family because of it. I mean, I still, have my kids, but it's like, that family that I was trying to build in a contorted way just ended up not being correct. And I at 25, I found myself alone, renting a space in someone's attic to sleep that was not very good. It was hot in the summer, right? And just found myself alone and questioning everything that I knew. And the problem was that even though intellectually I knew everything I did wrong and I knew what was holding me back, I couldn't put it into practice, and I didn't have the emotional maturity and the willpower and the discipline needed to just live right. And so I continued, for the next few years to just go darker and darker and go further down into the hole of trying to deal with everything that had happened, in my early life, that kind of gave me this twisted view of, how adults were supposed to act, right? So really just always be trying to learn, always be trying to evolve, because most people, they stop evolving, somewhere between like 15 and their early 20s. I read that somewhere in like I don't remember what study it was. I'll try to link it if I can find it. But it was, how most people, they stay 15 or 20 and they just continue to age, and then they become a 48-year-old or they become a 19-year-old in a 48-year-old's body, right? But people who are 48 and people who are 19 shouldn't really be acting the same, right? So just kind of focus on trying to evolve. And the way you know you're evolving, right, is about every year I've started to notice since I was like 15, this has happened. About every year, you should look back at yourself and you should think to yourself, God, who the fuck was that guy? Right? Who was that? Like, that's not me now, right? And that's your uh, conscience and that's your soul telling you, oh shit, you're evolving and you're looking back and you're recognizing it, right? It's the same thing with like MMA, right? If I look at myself now and I look at myself, uh, say, right before I started training, I thought that I could fight. I had been in lots of fights. I had won lots of fights. I had lost a couple. I had been in lots of fights, and I thought, yeah, man, I could fucking, I could throw down, right? I can bang, right? But then once I started training, I realized that I couldn't. And then I would, 6 months, a year after training, I would look back and be like, man, I'd have kicked my own ass. And then now, you know, it's almost 5 years later, I look back and I'm like, man, I really could fuck myself up from, 3 years ago, right? And so it's always a good idea to just pause, and for me, naturally, it's always happened somewhere around my birthday. Now it's a little different, with the birthday that I have coming up next year, being 30, right? It's like just this whole, year, all of 2025, right? I've just been thinking about a lot and trying to really grow up. They say that you're an adult when you're 18, right? But I think 18 is when you have permission to be an adult. But really, like, adolescence, it it, scientifically and in like psychological studies and stuff, they'll say that adolescence can last up to 24, 25. But I mean, me, man, I didn't stop acting like I was an adolescent until a year ago, a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, somewhere in that range. I finally just started to get some adult habits and adult ways of viewing the world. It wasn't until uh, just the beginning of this year, January, where I actually signed a lease on an apartment on my own name, my own social, my own everything, to sign a lease and have an apartment of my own where I'm paying the rent. I'm not with a roommate. I'm not renting a room from somebody. I'm not staying with family members, right? Just me alone in an apartment. And I could have done that a lot sooner, right? I always would come up with excuses in my head as to why I couldn't. I just needed a few more months. I need another year to just really, make, this MMA thing happen, or before it was to, make some business happen or something like that. And I was always trying to like put the cart before the horse because I was trying to do uh, like big boy shit before I could just do regular big boy shit, like have an apartment and a car and just be a basic adult who knows how to live like an adult. And now, I mean, like I said, man, I'm 29 and I just now am even starting to feel like I'm an actual adult. And it took me a long time to grow up. And a lot of that was due to stunted development that happened from things that occurred in my childhood. And I don't blame anybody for that. That was on me, right? As soon as I was old enough to kind of work and take care of myself, right, the onus was on me, right? It was my responsibility. It was my job to get all that done, and I just didn't, because I was always trying to be like a second rate version of different people that I admired, as far as people who were either YouTubers or athletes or, just other people, that authors, things like that. I was always trying to be them. I was never just trying to be myself. And, I heard someone say one time, is like, try to be a first rate version of yourself and don't try to be a second rate version of somebody else, right? Another thing is like, choose your circle wisely. Like, keep a small circle, right? Like me, I've got, you know, um, one guy that I'm really good friends with, uh, like outside of anything to do with MMA, and man, he is a fucking great dude, man. He helped me out a lot several years ago when I first met him. Um, as far as just different things because we worked together that he would do to try and kind of go above and beyond to like help me just personally, right? And then I disappeared for a while. That's another thing I had a problem I had in my life was I would just anytime life got like I felt like it wasn't where I wanted it, I would just like run away and move across the country. I'd quit a job, drop of a hat, didn't matter, right? And now the last couple years I've been trying to like develop the um, values of like loyalty and keeping promises and keeping commitments and being honest and not ghosting people and uh, just being like a good person. Honestly, trying to be like my father, right? I think a lot of the adolescent behavior that I had um, in the last 12, 15 years was all me rebelling against my father, right? Because he wasn't he wasn't as able to be present as a father as I'm sure he wanted to be due to manipulation and other things on the part of my mother because it was back in the days when she had custody and he was broke, so him paying child support, he just couldn't do it sometimes, and she would just cancel all types of visits. And so we didn't even really reconnect until I was already, an adult, right? And, when I look at him and the values that he has and just the way he lives and his, view of the world and the way he tries to conduct himself, right? There's no force in heaven or earth that could uh, compel my father to screw somebody over or to screw them out of money or to um, you know, lie or be deceptive or anything like that, right? It's like if I gave my father $100,000 in cash right now and said, "Hey, hold on to this for me. I've been saving it up. I just want you to hold on to it so that I can move out to Portland and do whatever," right? I could go back 3 years later and not a single cent of that money would be touched, right? And he's one of the few people that I know in the world that like I can say that about and be 100% sure that it's true, right? But back to so my friend, um, we reconnected, about almost a year ago, and he really helped me out when I moved back east. Man, he let me stay at his place. He just put full trust in me that I was going to be a good person and do things right and be a good uh, uh, and to just be a good friend, right? And he trusts me to be at home with his kids. He trusts me alone at home with his wife if like he had to work and she came home late and I was like sleeping or whatever. Like just he put total trust in me to be a good person, and I'm really thankful and really happy that I was able to get that practice at being honest and being a good person, and him and I, we're like this, man. We talk almost every day, and I have, a lot of people that are from uh, back in Oregon at Team Quest that, just did nothing but go above and beyond to be really good friends to me and give me rides to weigh-ins and rides to fights and to be good training partners. And I just can't, you know, thank them and thank God enough that I finally at in my late 20s got to see what real true friendship looks like, and that's all I want now is a small tight circle of people that I know for a fact will go above and beyond and do almost anything for me. And same goes the other way. It's like I would rather have 4 quarters than 100 pennies when it comes to friends, right? And then, probably the last thing I'll like close on is like try every time you can to choose delayed gratification, right? Do the things, right? Because there's only a few choices in life that we can make for any situation. Number one is what's like the best choice, which is the choice that's best for every single person that's involved in the situation, right? And best for the world, right? You know, in different levels, right? So, but just in personal life, right? In personal life and work life and everything, there's only a few choices we make. This is do what's best, which means what's best for everybody that's involved in the situation. Do what causes instant gratification, which usually makes you feel good now, but then has consequences later, right? And then there's do nothing. But with doing nothing, it's a two-sided option, right? Doing nothing can be, I'm too lazy, or I'm too tired, I'm too depressed, or I'm, apathetic is the word, right? Where you just are indifferent about everything, and so you just don't do anything because you just don't have the energy or the will or even the desire to do anything. Or you can do nothing because you need to wait and get more information before you make a decision, right? So, three choices: do what's best for everyone, do what causes instant gratification but has consequences later, or do nothing with the two sides of that choice, right? And I promise you, man, if you live your 20s thinking about some of the things that I just said, your 30s will thank you, man. I now going into my 30s have to do a lot of work that I could have got done in my mid 20s, and I'd be so much further, not just with fighting or MMA or anything like that, but just in life, so that's that's what I got for you, man. Just think about all those things, and God bless. Have a good night.